quality. What does that mean to you? What is quality to you? It could be quality of relationships, quality of money, quality of health. The quality of your life is determined solely by the quality of decisions you make. So that means every single decision that you make is going to lead you in a direction. Going to go left, going to go right, going to do this, going to do that, going to buy this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to interact with that person. Every single little decision has led you right to this point. You are right here, right now. No one else, you. No one can control your thoughts. No one can control your habits, your actions. No one can help you decide.
Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, my friend.
Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. As a professional speaker, NLP trainer, results coach, the clinical hypnotherapist, what does peak performance mean to you?
It's a great question. I'm going to be a little cliche here. I believe it's having the ability to know what you want and take action and move towards it. Real simple.
So there are two big pieces here. Number
Yeah.
one, knowing what we want.
Yeah.
For some of us, we don't know what we want.
Yeah.
We get distracted by shiny objects. So how does one even go about finding out what they really want?
That's interesting. When I do a lot of coaching, the first question I ask my clients is this. It's real simple. Let's pretend I'm your travel agent. What's the first question I'm going to ask you?
Where do you want to go?
Where do you want to go? Now, the funny thing is, and you understand this too, Mark, doing this for a long time, most people honestly know what they don't want, but they're real unclear, or maybe even cloudy about what they do want. And so when somebody comes in with that, you know what, I've never really thought about it. And I said, imagine we're going on a trip. And again, I'm your travel agent. I'm the one that's going to take you there, but you have to decide on where we're going to end up. And then from there, it's like using the metaphor of a travel agent, say we could take a car, we could take a train, we could take a bus, we could take a bike, we could walk. So the vehicle is unimportant until we actually know our destination. And that's one of the things that I believe is one of the most difficult things that people have in deciding what it is that they want. Because the unconscious mind, you know this too, Mark, our unconscious mind runs 90% of who we are. And it only does one thing all day long. It moves us in the direction of our dominating thoughts. So what we continually ruminate on, what we continually think about is where our body goes and where our mind goes with it. The challenge is most people find out when it's too late that they're in the wrong space because they never decided where they wanted to go. And so I, as a coach, and you too, as an NLP trainer, you understand this, life is like an onion and there's layers to everything that we do. And so as a great coach, we want to peel away the onion. So if I say, where do you want to go? We say, most people will say something like, I've been to New York. I don't want to go there. And sometimes the Northeast is really cold during the winter. I say, yeah, I get that. But where do you want to go? I went to Europe last year and I liked that a lot. But I said, yeah, I understand. So it's like peeling away until they finally discover truly where they want to be. Because I think most of it is we're all afraid. There's a lot of fear based on, what if I say the wrong thing? What if somebody laughs at me? What if somebody says, I get ridiculed for, you could never do that. That's not possible. No one's ever done that before. You're a man. You can't do that. Oh, you're a woman. You can't do that. You're black, you're white, you're Chinese, you're Mexican. All that comes into play. But in the end, what we've really learned is one thing. Whatever you focus on shows up. So the real question here is, ask yourself, where are you and where you want to be? Because if people can look down at their feet, as a metaphor, and realize, wow, this is the world that I chose right now. I don't want to be here. It's a great start. That's where people come from. We, as a hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner, we get those people that have tried everything else. You know, they tried it on their own. They went to psychologists. Maybe they even hired a coach at some point. They finally get to us and they're like, wow, this is actually pretty simple to do. Really, it's just peeling away that onion until you get to the core of, and it could be different things. Everybody's got different values of who they are, right? And what they want in life, but it's understanding what that is.
Even when someone knows what their goal is, why do they sabotage their own goals, even when they, in this case, consciously want to change?
Yeah, and that happens probably more than knowing what your goals are, because I believe success is this. It's only two things. It's real simple. It's knowing what you want, getting clear about it, and then learning to get out of your own way. That's it. This is an example that I give my clients when I'm working with them. I said, let's pretend I'm going to give you an outcome. I want you to go to the grocery store down the street here. I want you to pick up milk, eggs, and butter. And they're like, really? That's it? I go, yeah, that's it. They go, okay. They get in the car, they go to the store, whip out their wallet, buy it, come back and go, how easy was that? It was pretty simple because there's two things that happened there. One is you knew what you want. And second, you didn't have anybody or anything in your way about going to the store and picking up those items. But now we expand that and say, okay, what if I say, you came to me because you want to be in a healthy relationship. Let's go get you a healthy relationship. And what immediately happens in their head? All those doubts, all those beliefs come up. I can't do that. No one's going to like me. I'm not worth it. All that negative self-talk. And that's where we come in, right? This is what your podcast does. Help people peel away that onion to get to the core of really who we are. We're all worthy. We're all deserving. It's just that we have to get past what we call those limiting beliefs. And most of them were learned from childhood, from our primary caretakers. They say that 80% of who we are, 80 to 85% of who we are is built into our personality by the time we're 6, 8 years old, somewhere in there. And that comes from the people that raised us. And again, they don't mean it, but they've passed down beliefs. I ask my clients this all the time. Raise your hand, tell me something that was said to you that you still believe about relationships, about money, about health. Money doesn't grow on trees. My mom used to say that all the time. Or, oh, I'll worry about my health later on. Later on is usually 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and then it's too late. So we have all these negative beliefs roaming around in our head, and we tend to believe them. But up until about 8 or 10 years old, the brain, the unconscious mind, starts asking questions like, why? So if you believed in Santa Claus as the Easter Bunny at one time, which you believed it with not a doubt in your mind before you're 8 or 10 years old, your brain starts going, wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me that some big fat guy jumps down a chimney hole that's this wide and delivers. That's called addressing the belief. And then we start getting reference experiences to further that belief of that's not possible. This is what we do in NLP. We take those beliefs and we just find opposing beliefs that can use as evidence to support what we do want and what we don't want.
It's one thing to take a belief, a core belief that's been embedded for decades and use NLP to help them. But what about the person's identity? Because a lot of
Yeah.
us are married to the identity we have.
Yeah.
How do you work with people to change their identity for lasting behavior change?
Yeah, it's the same thing, really. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Dilts. I train with Robert. He has this pyramid that he calls, and at the very bottom of the pyramid is how we live our life. It's the environment that we live in. And then one step up from that is our behaviors that we do. And then the step up from that is our capabilities. Are we capable? That's our self-worth. And then becomes the very top of the pyramid is our identity, who we are, which governs all of that. So you may ask somebody a question like, what do you believe about money? And somebody may say something completely off tilt. You can hear it in their language because language is so important. It's how we build these beliefs in our head. So when somebody says something like, I'm not capable of making money, that's a belief rather than the difference of saying it's hard to make money. That's a capability and that's lower down on the ladder. But when you're dealing with an identity like that, it's no different than working with a belief or a value. We first have to identify it. And then we got to really ask the client, is that even real? Is that even what you truly believe? And most of the time, after a little bit of digging, people are going to say, no, that's not. That just seems to what I've learned, or maybe I've believed my whole life, who I am. And this is a great question too, Mark, because talking to the men right now, most men identify with their job or their career. I have a couple of men I was just talking to recently about this. They were tired and their wife didn't even know this, that a lot of men feel they're not worthy anymore because their identity was attached to their job of what they did and who they were. Now, obviously, that's not right in the world of considering our values and who we want to become. But again, those are preconceived beliefs. And if you're tied into your identity, how could you do anything else? If you believe that you're not capable of making money, and I don't mean money like getting a job and work at McDonald's, but I'm talking making money. Some people consider that maybe 100,000, 200,000, $1 million a year. I can't do that. I don't have those. I don't have those abilities in me. I don't have those skills in me. Yeah, you don't. Not right now. Of course you don't. You've never done it before, right? So we just keep chipping away at those beliefs, those identities. That's really the secret of it, is just uncovering it over and over again.
You have many famous quotes, one of them being state control equals life control.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's the book that I just wrote. Control your emotions, master your life, because it's real simple. This quote comes from Tony Robbins. He says, the quality of your life. Now, everybody's got a different synonym for quality. What does that mean to you? What is quality to you? It could be quality of relationships, quality of money, quality of health. The quality of your life is determined solely by the quality of decisions you make. So that means every single decision that you make is going to lead you in a direction. Going to go left, going to go right, going to do this, going to do that, going to buy this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to interact with that person. Every single little decision has led you right to this point. You are right here, right now. No one else, you. No one can control your thoughts. No one can control your habits, your actions. No one can help you decide. But here's the crazy thing, though. What allows you to decide? What allows you to make those decisions? And that is backed up by the emotional states we're in when we're making those decisions. And here's another famous quote you've said: don't make a large decision in your life when you're in a very negative state of mind. It just doesn't work, because if you're in a negative state of mind, you tend to make negative decisions. You're in a positive, empowering state of mind, you're going to make better, more empowering decisions. Real simple.
When it comes to motivation,
Yeah.
and Tony Robbins is a great example because he does so many things.
Yeah.
But in the social media, in marketing world, he's a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
And we all know that motivation doesn't last very long. You go to see a motivational speaker, you feel really good about it, you leave, and you're like,
Yeah.
and that wears off.
Yeah.
So can you help us understand the difference between motivation and alignment?
Yeah.
And how do you go about making sure that what the work you're doing with your client is going to stay long term and it's just not going to wear off?
Yeah. Another great question. And in fact, Tony even says nowadays, he goes, I'm not a motivation coach. He goes, I don't do motivation. Anybody can have motivation. But like you said, it's only temporary because it's a feeling. That's the challenge. It's a feeling. It's not an action. And I heard, and you know who Mike Tyson is, right? Mike Tyson says the same thing. He says, I never use motivation. He goes, I use discipline. He goes, but there are plenty of times when I need to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and train for 3 hours and I'm exhausted. Motivation isn't going to do it. It's discipline that's going to get me out of bed and moving me towards my goals. And discipline, again, is just another habit. How do you build that in? That's the real question, right? Because if you can be disciplined about your habits, you can accomplish anything. You don't need motivation. Yeah, motivation is great. It's nice to have. It feels good, as you were saying. It's all that. But I'll tell you, when it comes down to it, life strategies, you better have discipline. You better be able to do that habit consistently. Take brushing your teeth. I don't like doing it, but I know I have to. I'm disciplined in doing it. And the same thing, I'm disciplined in taking care of my body and eating right every day, taking care of my investments every day. I don't like doing it, but when I'm disciplined, my outcomes show up faster. That's really the secret of what it is. It's discipline.
So many of us decide we want to do something, right? We form a habit, we form a discipline, we map it on a piece of paper, we get started with it,
Yeah.
the minutia of life kicks in,
Yeah.
we get off track, and then we get emotional.
Yeah.
And emotions
Yeah.
are our worst advisors. So
Worse.
why do so many people struggle to control their emotions, and what's the hidden cost?
The challenge is this, because we can go back to, and you know this as well, NLP was developed from a process of taking the best of the best people and replicating these processes, these strategies. And when we're working with individuals like that, we want to find out one simple question. This is the thing that continually shapes our lives, is the why we do it. The challenge is, you were just saying, is most people, they get all excited and they're maybe disciplined for a while, but their why, the reason they want to do it, wears off. They don't have a strong enough why to keep the fire burning to keep that motivation and that discipline going. So the thing we want, and here's one of the, has my clients, and they all think I'm crazy. I'll say, okay, let's figure out, we're going to work together. Here's your first piece of homework I give to you. Figure out what you want. And then the second thing I say is, I want you to come back in our next lesson, and I want you to write down for me, when we're back together again, 100 reasons why you want this so bad. And here's the crazy thing, Mark. Every single time, every single person will say this. 100? Are you kidding? No way. I can't do 100. Maybe 50. Now, here's the funny thing. Because I've tested this. I'll say, I want 50 different reasons. When they'll go, 50? No, I can't. 50. I could do 25. It's always cut in half every single time. If I say 10, they'll go, that's a lot. I could do 5 right off the bat here. So it doesn't matter the number I give them. And here's the funny thing. I don't even care how many they do. I want to see if they're committed in doing it. And I had a client come back and say this. He literally wrote down one reason 100 times. I said, perfect. You did your homework. I didn't ask for 100 different reasons. I wanted to see if you were going to do the work. Because if you're willing to do the work now, it's going to be easy when things get hard. As you were just saying, when life comes up and those emotions come up, your environment comes up, the people that you surround yourself with, the energy that's in your environment, that's going to stop you. That's going to stunt your growth. That's going to stop you dead in your tracks. And you better have a strong reason why you want to do this to keep you going. That's the key.
It's good when we know that we are being ruled by emotion because at least we are cognizant about
Yes.
what's happening.
Yes.
But a lot of times we don't even know that it's our emotion that's controlling us. So how does someone go about recognizing if they're being ruled by emotion or logic?
Everybody's gone through this. Every single person. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you understand you're challenged with something in your life right now. I don't know what that is. Everybody's got different problems going on. I don't want to say problems. I hate that word problem. They're challenges because we can overcome challenges. Problems seem sometimes insurmountable. We all have issues that are going on in our life. Most likely, you're not going to be able to overcome them by yourself. Because if you could, you already would. And that's why it's always great to have a friend or a family member or your spouse to bounce off ideas. And here's the thing that I do, and I'm guilty of this as well. It's no perfect life. There's no perfect situation. Every day is challenging. You get up in the morning, right? You're facing issues every day. Just that, how do you look at it, right? How do you look at those issues? What I like to do is I bounce ideas off people. I'll email 10 different people. Like if I'm writing a new book, I'll go, what do you think about this title? Be blatantly honest. Don't tell me the fluff. I already know it's good. Don't tell me what's good. Tell me how I can improve. And if you're willing to ask those hard questions, as Aristotle said, asking the right question is half the answer. If you're willing to ask those tough questions, you'll get the proper. But here's the thing. We go around asking bad questions all the time. The first ever book I wrote was actually based on Aristotle's quote. Asking the right question is half the answer. The book title was Asking the Right Question. Most people ask questions like this of themselves. God, I really suck at relationships. I wonder why my relationships fail. I'll give you a reason. If your unconscious mind is running 90% of who you are, it's like a 7-year-old inside. You've heard that child spirit inside. If you're asking that 7-year-old, why do my relationships fail? It loves you so much, it wants to give you the proper answers. So the answers it's going to come up with are answers to the question you ask of, how come I fail all the time? And it says, you fail because you don't put in the communication. You fail because you don't have any integrity in the relationship. You fail because you're not honest in the relationship. Instead of asking questions like, I want a healthy relationship. What's it going to take for me to change to get the relationship that I want? Then your unconscious mind shows up and goes, wow, that's easy. Work on good habits. Work on showing up on time. Working on being honest about your feelings and the things that you want. No different than money. I can't make money. How come I'm broke all the time? Ask bad questions. You're going to come up with bad answers. It's such an easy task. See, I'm really stupid in this way. I like stupid, simple things. I don't like to work hard. I like things easy. I like things simple. And so this is the easiest and most simple way to change your core is ask better questions. Ask better questions of yourself. and be honest. Again, you got to come back to that belief of, is this working? Right. And that's written. I love Dr. Phil's book, the first book he wrote called Life Strategies. He says, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. It's a powerful quote. You could be standing in the quagmire going, no, I'm fine. It's rising. It's pretty soon up to here. And that's when most people, when they're completely drowning in their life, go, I think I should change. Something's not working.
Obviously, when people are here and they are drowning, other than the guilt and all of these things that they're feeling, one of the things that most people also feel is anxiety.
Yeah.
So, in
Yeah.
your experience working with hundreds and thousands of clients, what is the fastest way to shift from anxiety to calm?
They say worry is about the past and we have anxiety about the future. The anxiety of something that hasn't even shown up yet. That's the challenge. That's really the challenge because most people do this. They put their mind out in the future. I'll give you an example. And because tax day just passed, oh my God, I owe so much money on my taxes. I'm not going to be able to pay it. Now, what are they projecting out into the future? What's going to go wrong? What could go wrong? If you're constantly asking, again, coming back to this, if you're constantly telling yourself or asking yourself what could go wrong, hell, I'd be anxious too about that. Anybody would. It's like watching a movie in your head of the IRS knocking on your door or your spouse yelling at you because you didn't pay your taxes in four increments throughout the day or throughout the year. It's, I always say, life is so simple. It really is. We just get in our way. We make bad decisions and then we compound them by making another bad decision, trying to combat the first bad decision. Rather than taking a step back, looking at that, as we were just saying, going, okay, where am I right now? Awareness is the first key. You've got to know where you're at. You've got to know where you're at. And then this as an NLP practitioner, the NLP success formula. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. It took me 25 years to figure this out. In the book Think and Grow Rich, I read that at 14 years old. I was floored. Napoleon Hill, that wrote the book, and he finished it in 1936, but in 1902, he was commissioned by the first billionaire, Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie said to Napoleon when he was only 19 years old, he said, I'm going to support you in going out and interviewing plenty of intelligent, wealthy, successful individuals. And I want you to find the philosophy of success. And in the book, Napoleon, he laughs. He goes, I looked down in my pocket and I only had 13 cents in my pocket. I didn't even know how I was going to get home from his house. Never mind putting all this information out there. Now, he was given 500 of the most successful men at the time because he didn't interview women, which I didn't understand why, but the most successful individuals in the world at the time, all over the world, presidents, Albert Einstein. It's just an amazing list when you go through it. But he found one thing. In the first chapter, he writes, it's about knowing what you want, as we were just talking about, but he calls it a burning white heat of desire. A burning white heat of desire. You have to have that in getting what you want. It's got to drive you, as we were talking about before. It's that why. You've got to have that fire behind you. Because as we were saying, there's issues that come up. After a while, if that fire is going to burn out, and so will you, right? Pretty soon you end up right back where you started from. But when John Grinder and Richard Bandler set out in 1972 to discover this success formula, it's real simple. You ready, folks? Here it is. It's 4 steps. Real simple. It's outcome. Number 1, outcome. You got to know what you want, as we were talking about. You got to know exactly what you want and where you're headed and where you want to end up. Number 2 is action. He said, this is the hardest piece of the puzzle. Because action means I have to get up and do something about it. I got to move towards it. And that's where fear comes in. That's where all that self-doubt comes in. So once you get past the action part, then the third piece is awareness. Asking yourself the simple question of, is it working? Is the action that I'm doing right now moving me in the direction of my outcome? And then the fourth piece, which is the most important, is flexibility. And flexibility is knowing what you want, taking action, knowing if it's working, doing something different. I do a lot of relationship coaching too, Mark. This is really interesting. I always use this formula with people in relationships because here's what happens normally. I know what I'm doing. I want this healthy relationship. I know who I am. I'm taking action, moving towards it. The third piece is awareness. Is it working? Now, a lot of times, unless you're blessed by the hand of God, that he comes down and says, or he or she comes down and says, okay, your first relationship is going to be successful. It's very rare that people come into this world out of high school and find the love of their life and get married and have kids and live happily ever after. Most people fail over and over again. It's not because they're choosing the wrong person. They haven't really decided what and who they are and what they want and what's most important to them. So then if we apply the success formula to, let's say, relationships, I'm moving in that direction. I know what I want. I know it's not working. The fourth step is supposed to be flexibility, but guess what we do? Because we're creatures of habit. We go from 1, 2, 3 and back up to 1 again. I know what I want. I'm taking action. Yeah, it's not working. It's weird. I know what I want. I'm taking action, but it's not working. They never understand that philosophy of flexibility. You got to do something different. You got to become or even become somebody different in achieving that goal. So it's knowing what you want, taking action every single day, having that motivation we talked about, awareness, is it working or not? And then the flexibility. How can I move towards it? What can I do better? What skill could I learn? Who do I need to talk to? What could I believe that's going to help me move towards my goals?
What pivotal moment in your life made you pursue NLP and hypnotherapy?
Man, I hate this question. You know why? Because I have to be honest with all you people out there. You have to become vulnerable, right? Everybody's got their own story. It's one of the things Tony Robbins talks about. He goes, the challenge with most people is we're in our head all the time and we're only telling our story and we're looping through our story over and over again. Mine was real simple. My dad probably should have never got married to my mom. They were young and 18 and had 4 kids. And my dad was just a perfectionist and a workaholic. He's still alive. I tell him to this day, it's so funny when I'm doing podcasts. I said, Dad, you're going to be famous. You're in this podcast. Of course, it's not good, but he became a workaholic. If some of you know who the Teamsters is, my dad became vice president of the Teamsters Union with Jimmy Hoffa. And for a long time, he was in the political system, but he was never home. He's never home. He's working 5, 7 days a week and very little time for his family. He'd come home, he'd check in with mom and see how we were doing. And then he'd beg on the phone anyway. So that leaves a lot of insecurity I was the firstborn. So I got out of high school and I'm trying to find myself. And unfortunately, I found the wrong person to hang out with. And he was doing a lot of drugs and hanging out with the wrong people. And I got involved in that. And there was a point in my life, and I was 19 years old, I had a bottle of pills in my hand. And I was like, this is a way out of this hole. This will help me get rid of this black cloud, this tunnel I'm living in. Of course, and I say, of course, thank God that my grandfather, his father, was in my life a lot. And he was a really good, integrable man. And he drove a lot of my motivation in the things that I do now. And I heard that voice in the back of his head that said, you're better than this, John. You're better than this. And I didn't go to college because I couldn't sit in front of a teacher for 8 to 10 hours a day listening to a talking head. I had no motivation. It was about 10 years past, and I figured, you know what? I'm going to make something of my life. I went back to school, finished my degrees, all my certifications, and then went back again a couple of years ago, finished my PhD because I had purpose. I had that why. That was the thing that clicked for me, Mark. I had that why. I knew why I was going back to school now. Most kids, what are they told about school? You're supposed to go to school. You're supposed to get a job. My God, and the kids nowadays, it's even harder, right? They're lost. I talked to a lot of business people. These kids are lost till they're 30 years old. They're trying to figure it out. It's a shame. We're not teaching the right things to kids in school nowadays. I believe this, and you know this because you're an NLP practitioner. NLP should be taught in schools. Should be taught in schools how to manage your emotions, how to set and clarify your goals, how to achieve your goals, how to communicate effectively with other people, how to influence yourself. Those are things we should be learning, not math. And yeah, math is great if you're going to become a math teacher where you need to balance your checkbook. We don't even have a checkbook anymore. You need history. Yeah, history is a great thing, but it's not necessary to run your life. Let me ask you guys listening to this podcast, because I believe Mark's got a great purpose here in what he's doing. There's only 3 problems that we face in life, only 3. Now, I can't ask all of you out there listening what they are, so I'm going to tell you. The first problem is, and everyone that you're probably thinking about is going to fall under one of these umbrellas. The first problem is relationships. That's always the first problem we have in life. Usually comes at about 13, 14 years old. We get into relationships and it's exciting, and then we get dumped or we dump somebody else and it doesn't work. We try to figure it out. The second problem is money, right? We're supposed to get a job. Nobody teaches us how to manage money, how to invest our money, so we don't have to work and grind till you're 60 or 70 years old every day. And the third problem is, which comes later in life, is health. And that's usually not a problem until you start getting sick. And I see it every day. My wife works at the hospital. She comes home and tells me these horrible stories about people, horrible, dying alone, just cancer, sickness, illness. And a lot of it starts in our mind. But we're not taught how to do relationships in school. We're not taught how to manage money in school. We're not taught, and maybe if you took a health class, but that's only usually about vitamins and exercise, the three most important issues in our life, and we're not taught about that. That's crazy. That's crazy. But we're not here, at least the government. I don't want to get into politics because it's not about politics, but the government, I don't care what country you live in, the government doesn't want leaders. The government wants followers to do the work, the work. And so to have followers, you've got to keep them at a certain level. You can't teach things that we're talking about today. Could you imagine if every single day in elementary school you were listening to podcasts and doing the work like this? How powerful would you be as an adult? You'd be unstoppable. Everyone in school. This world would be completely different. We wouldn't have any problems in the world any longer. None. Because everybody's at that same vibrational spiritual level. We all understand it's not just about me. It's about the place I live and the people I surround myself with.
Someone's listening to this and they're considering NLP. How can they know if NLP is right for them?
Do you have a problem? There it is. There's the question, and there's the answer. If you have a problem, then NLP is right for you. Yeah, it's funny that you asked that. We can, and most of us do, solve minuscule problems every single day, right? Little things. But when it comes to the big things like that, relationships, money, and health, you better be looking outside of yourself because you got yourself into that problem. No one else did. If you're broke, no one stole your money. And even if people stole your money, you can make more of it. There's trillions of dollars out there, and it's not dedicated to any one person. It's easy to make money. You just have to know how. You've got to be dedicated and you've got to be disciplined. If you're not healthy right now, because I was in the health and fitness industry for 25 years in the beginning after high school. I worked at gyms, I managed it, I was a trainer. I started school for my nutrition degree and realized that was good. If you're unhealthy, and people don't like when I say this, if you're unhealthy, the main reason, not the only reason, the main reason why is because of your thinking. There's a great book, if anyone's interested. Dr. David Simon wrote a book called Return to Wholeness. And he was a cancer oncologist down in San Diego at Deepak Chopra's resort, which he called the La Costa Center, which was really a rehab center for illnesses. Dr. David Simon, in the first chapter of his book, says this, and it's a crazy quote: 97% of all dis-ease of the body is psychosomatic in origin. That means as we think, so shall we become. We think ourselves into sickness. And people don't believe me. Here's ready. What's an ulcer? Stress. It's stress. You're worried all the time. You're thinking about things that probably aren't even going to happen, or something that's happening and you're worried about it. You get an ulcer. You're literally causing something in the biology to happen, which is cortisol. I wrote another book called Stress Reduction. It's how to manage stress. It's actually really easy. You got yourself into it, you can get yourself out of it. But they've done so much study on this that your mind can literally think yourself into illness. And it's not illness you're creating. What you're creating is you're breaking down your immune system. Think about it like this. Your immune system is like a force field. It's like a force field around your body all day. Do you know we have cancer cells running in our body every single day? Billions of them, all the time. Except our immune system, our white blood cell count, is always attacking those cancer cells and gobbling them up. They don't become exacerbated because they're managed well. But as soon as your immune system weakens, the cancer starts taking over. Here's another example. What's AIDS? Immune deficiency disorder. When your immune system weakens, some of these people die from a cold. A cold will kill them. In fact, pneumonia is the number one thing that kills most people with AIDS because their immune system is weakened. Now, that's a completely different story. That's usually biological, but most of us, we think ourselves into illness. We think ourselves into illness, into sickness. So why can't we think ourselves into wellness? Why can't we think ourselves into wealth? Why can't we think ourselves into happy relationship? You have to decide that's something that you want.
We're going to get into our last section here, John. We're going to do
Yeah.
a little bit of a rapid fire questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I'll just ask some questions. Whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind, you blurt it out, right?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
What's your favorite NLP technique?
Anchoring. The
One.
ability to control my emotional states.
Okay. Coffee or green juice?
Green juice. I don't drink coffee.
One book you'd take to a deserted island.
Think and Grow Rich.
What's a quote you live by?
Wow. Only one? You are what you think.
First word that comes to mind when you hear transformation.
Change.
That's it.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell our audience member where to find you, where they can connect with you. Tell us what's going on in your life.
Real simple. We have an NLP training program here in Los Angeles. It's a live 12-day event. If you're interested, it's real simple. It's LA, like in Los Angeles, LANLP.com, 5 letters. Go there, you'll figure out. And if you're interested in this book, which Mark and I have been talking about for the last half hour, I got the domain name associated to it. It's controlyouremotions.com. Take you right to the Amazon page to buy it.
Wow. John, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an honor hosting you. It's been a great podcast, and I hope to talk to you soon again.
It only works because of your energy, buddy. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.